Tandem Nomads, episode 111. Do you sometimes hesitate or struggle to describe your business, for instance, in a networking event, explain what you do, or describe your offer or product in an effective way on your website, on your sales page, or on your brochures? If it's the case, then no worries anymore. I've got you covered today. In this episode, I will share with you very practical template you can use to describe your business, product, or service and attract more clients or even referrals. Hello, Nomad Nation. Welcome to Tandem Nomads, the podcast show and entrepreneurship platform where you can find great inspiration and tips to grow a successful portable business and thrive in your global nomadic life. I am your host, Emel Draghi. I'm a business and marketing expert, and today I'm going to show you my very secret templates that you can use to practice and get ready to be able to describe your business, what you do, your product, or your service in any occasion. Most of the time, this happens when you're in a networking event, for example, and you struggle to get people understand what you're actually doing. Or maybe you don't see them really interested in what you're telling them. So there are some reasons why this happens. But also on a website, for example, you might wonder what are you going to put on that web page to be able to make people click and buy your online product, for example. So it is very important that you really know how to describe your offer in a compelling way and that you can really describe to people what you actually do in a way that they can really identify with. So I'm really excited to share with you my little tips today. And today it's going to be quite intense, but I'm going to try to make it shorter because it is one of those short episodes week. So what I'm going to do, especially as a podcast episode, it's kind of hard to visualize those templates. So I really want to invite you to go to tandemnomads.com/111 while you're listening to this episode and download the freebie I have for you. Because in that freebie, I'm going to take you step by step through this process that I'm explaining to you in this episode. But you will also be able to find things that I won't have the time to mention in this episode. For example, some extra templates to be able to network, but also to use it on your sales pages, for example. I'm actually going to give you pictures and describe to you the process of how I design my sales pages to promote my business idea accelerator, for example. So I'm really revealing all the secrets here for you. So go to tandemnomads.com/111 and I will be now taking you through the steps so that you can really now not anymore have to waste any energy and frustrations in trying to figure out how to explain to people what you're doing and make sure to attract clients. And the specialty about today is also that I want to help you describe your product or service so that even if you are talking to someone who is not in your target audience, that they can really understand what you are doing so that if one day they hear of someone who needs what you have, they can really think of you. Because the best marketing is word of mouth. You have to know that. And if you can't explain to people who have nothing to do or no need for what you have, if you can't really make them relate to what you do, it's going to be really hard to, make that word of mouth work. And who knows, maybe there's somebody out there who knows exactly your perfect ideal client. So whatever I'm showing you here is also for that purpose, that you can really describe things in an effective way. Okay, so let's now get started. And it's going to be pretty simple and straightforward, actually. There's only one thing you need to really do when you have to describe your business, your product, your service, or simply answer to the question, what do you do? The only thing you need to do really well is to answer the question, what transformation are you providing? That's it. I know it sounds simple, but don't worry, I'm going to tell you how to do that. But I just want you to realize that even if the templates I'm going to share with you are going to seem very detailed and maybe complex, I don't think so, but still, the only main idea you have to keep in mind to be able to be successful at describing what you do is describing that transformation, because anything you are selling at the end of the day is for the sole purpose to provide a change, right? So I'm going to give you a second here to think about it. Try to answer this question. What transformation do you provide? So I'm pretty sure that right now you're having lots of ideas coming in, and I did not give you enough time to think about it maybe. But there's a pragmatic way to answer this question, and it's very simple. And in that template, in the free guidebook that I'm sending you, you're going to have actually the graph that shows you how to answer that question. But it's very simple. You first need to define the situation A, and then you define the situation B, and then you define how you take people from A to B. It's pretty mathematic. You want to know what's happening before you start working with your client, what's happening after they work with you or buy your product or service, and how do you take them from A to B. That's all you need to do to be able to be effective at really making people understand what you do and attract potential clients. But I'm going to go even deeper there to help you with that. But I really want you to understand that everything I'm going to share with you today is about doing that exercise of defining what transformation you provide. And actually, I'm realizing one thing while I'm talking to you. There's another big element here is defining the problem. So what a business is about solving a problem. So that transformation is basically showing you how you're solving that problem. But I want to make a side note for those of you who don't have a business that's related to really a problem. And I'm thinking here specifically to artists, for example, and novelists, book writers like novels and fiction, kids' books, things like that. So although I really encourage that even if you're an artist or a writer, to think about that question, what problem are you solving to your clients when they buy your piece of art? I would really like you to have that exercise because you might find one. For example, I work with a client who's an amazing artist. And while we were working on that, how she could define her target audience and her niche, we found out that she could solve a problem for interior designers who need to have tailor-made paintings that fit to the design of, their client's space. So you could really find, maybe if you stretch, but let's say you're really an artist and on top of doing this kind of business, you really want to create a piece of art that people buy just for the art. So here, the question that you want to answer is not so much what problem do you solve, but what desire do you serve? So think about that desire. What kind of desire are you fulfilling when people buy your piece of art or your novel? Think about that, and you want to be very, very specific. And again, even in the case of artists, that question, what transformation you provide, is actually as relevant. So just a side note about that. So whenever you hear me talking about problem or pain point, please refer to it in your case, if you're an artist, as desire instead of problem and emotions instead of pain points. Okay, so just put that on your, a bit of a side note for you as we go along this episode and as you go along the templates that I will share with you. But yeah, so I think I made my biggest point here with you that if you want to describe what you do, it's very important that you know how to explain that transformation from A to B and how do you do it. Okay, so that requires a few steps from you to do it really well. And the first step, and I know that I've already been insisting a lot about this on previous episodes, is to really define your niche. Again, I really don't think it's possible, especially if you're a solopreneur, to be able to have a successful portable business if you don't focus on a niche. So in this episode, I will refer you to some episodes where I guide you through that. So I don't want to take too much time there because I already prepared some resources for you there. But let's say you know what's your niche And once you know what's your niche, you want to take the time to also get to know them even better in their heads. And this is going to be very, very critical for you to have a very good pitch. I actually want to talk about the term pitch later, but in order to really speak the language of your clients, you need to know what keywords and what vocabulary they use. So that's another part that you really want to do through surveys, through interviews, through one-on-one talks, focus groups. You want to get as much vocabulary as possible from your clients instead of from you. And I will describe to you what are the kind of words you need to have in order to design a very good pitch for your business, your product, or your offer, or your service. So very important, this first step, to get to know your niche and figure out the language that they need. So what kind of language do you need? What kind of keywords do you need to define? So the first one is the problem. You need to be very clear about what problem you're solving, and you want to make sure that it is, again, expressed in the way that your ideal customer would do it. For example, I'm going to use the simple example of tandem nomads along this episode and the templates I shared with you. I'm really giving you everything here. So, for example, let's say in tandem nomads, the problem is that it's very difficult and complicated to have a real successful career when we live on the move, moving from a country to another all the time. That's the problem. So now I want you to think, once you have that simple problem that you're solving, well, not simple, but once you have that defined, what problem you're solving, you want to break that down into pain points. So I always explain that take the example of a disease, for example, and when you go to a doctor, let's say you have, for example, an ear infection, or so you won't go to the doctor and tell him, I have an ear infection, or for example, I have the flu. That's going to be easier. You're not going to go say, I have the flu, because you don't know if it's the flu or something else. So the doctor will tell you if it's a flu or something else. So the problem is that you probably have the flu, or you're simply sick. But the pain points are the symptoms. And the symptoms are, I'm coughing, I have a headache, I can't sleep. So in your business, you want to do the same thing. You define the problem, and then you define the pain points. And for example, in Tandem Nomads, as you know, I'm really focused and targeting specifically expat spouses around the world, and specifically spouses who move every 2-3 years. So the pain points, after doing my research and talking to them, doing some interviews and group talks, I have lined up a few pain points that I'm using all the time in the vocabulary that I'm using to be able to express what Tandem Nomads does. For example, the pain points are loss of confidence, loss of financial independence, loss of sense of purpose. So these are very, very important pain points, and I use the words that my clients and my ideal audience would use. I'm not going to use mine. For example, for me, the key word was success, and I realized that that's not the word that my audience would use. So you want to pay attention to that, because that's going to be so key in the way you explain the transformation you provide. And then you want to do the same thing with the solution. So problem, pain points, and then you want to describe the solution. So what is the solution you provide to get from A to B, and how do you do that? So you really want to explain that very concretely and very easily, and simplify it. You don't need to go into details. For example, in Tandem Nomads, my solution to dual career challenges is to learn how to build and grow a successful portable business. And I do it through this podcast show, all my free resources, but I also do it through my online paid trainings and one-on-one coaching and group coaching. So this is how I take my people from A to B. So do the same thing. And for example, if you have a product, you want to explain how that product is, taking you from A to B, but don't go into too many details. That's not the point here. Until you get to the sales page, and we'll talk about that when you download the template. I will explain you that little side note about the detailed explanation. But for now, don't go into details. Just be able to summarize it precisely and effectively. And the final and fourth word and vocabulary you need to be able to express clearly are the results. What results can you promise to provide to your ideal customer? So that's really important. So I call it the promise, and we'll talk about it later. But for now, just think about the results, which are actually the desired outcome of your customers. You want to know that very clearly. For example, what are the results that Tandem Nomads clients need? An audience is consistent revenue, freedom of choice, flexibility of lifestyle. Also, something that I discovered is the need to contribute to the household, and for some is just have extra money to be able to go on fun trips and be able to travel even more, but for holidays, not for living. So I'm going to summarize now these 4 kind of words that you absolutely need to nail, not with your own words, but with the words of your customers. So the problem, the pain points, the solution, and the result. Very important. Once you do that, you want to gather all this information and then work on what I call the promise. So the promise is actually the nicer word for me to say instead of pitch, because a lot of people will tell you pitch your business, or how can I pitch my business or my product, my service. The problem with me about pitching is that this word for me is a lot about imposing information on others and throwing it at people's face. And I don't want you to do that. If you really want to get people's attention, you don't want to throw information at their face. You want to make sure that you have their attention, but that you can, first of all, really make them relate to what you're talking about with the right vocabulary, but also that you can show what is your commitment and why you're unique and why you're the right person instead of another one. And finally, why should I remember you? So if you just change the mindset about how you present your business and think about it as a promise rather than a pitch, trust me, you're going to go a long way. So I want you to learn how to describe your promise. And this is exactly what the freebie and this guidebook that I have for you will help you do. It's a really good exercise, and I'm going to show you word per word how to do it. So you go to tandemnomads.com/111 and you'll be able to get it there. But I'm just going to read it for you right now. It's much better if you see it written because I have it in different color codes, etc. So you can really understand where you have to fill in the blanks. But I'm going to just show you one template that is the generic template to work on your promise. So here it is. If you are blank and struggle with blank and blank, you've come to the right place. Once you discover blank, you will blank and blank. All right, so I wonder how much you're laughing at me right now, but the blanks, I'm going to explain you what the blanks are. So those are where you put your keywords, those 4 types of keywords that I asked you to work on. That's what you put in. So you're going to pick, first of all, the identifiers. So you remember when I told you you really need to focus on a niche and to know exactly how to describe them? So that's the identifier. For example, like I said, I focus on expat spouses, but not all of them. I'm focused on expat spouses who had a career before and who are not happy with having given it up and move every 2 to 3 years, or at least on a regular basis. So that's my identifier. So think about you. How can you really describe in a sentence or 2 your target audience? Very important. So that's the first blank, the identifiers. Then you have the pain points. So I invite you to choose 2 relevant pain points. And then the process, how does your product work? You want to do that, or your service. And the last blank is the result you promise. So I promise if you actually download it, it will be much easier to see it. But in a podcast format, it's hard to really make you visualize it. But basically, that's what you have to do. If you are blank identifiers and struggle with pain point 1 and pain point 2, you've come to the right place. Once you discover this process, you will have this result and this result. So I'm going to read you the promise that I have in Tandem Nomads to help my audience. So in my case, if you are an expat partner If you give up your career because your spouse has a job that makes your family move from one country to another every couple of years, and you feel lost or struggle to build something for yourself, you've come to the right place. Okay, Nomad Nation, I'm going to give a pause here. Just raise your hand here. Did you identify with what I just said? I would love you to tell me, or you can maybe share in the comment of the show notes of this episode, because I spend a lot of time making sure that every single word I'm using here is the word of my audience. So I would love you to tell me if you identified with that. And so if you can see here, I identified who you are, I identified the pain points you have, and I made sure that they are the words of the expert partner. So here it is the specific promise of the early stage expert partner. So some of you might already be more advanced, and actually I have a promise for those who are more advanced. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go through it. But what I want to share with you here is that the promise is something you can use for every single product or every single service you have. For example, let's say you have different packages as a life coach. You could create a promise for each package to describe it in an effective way. And you can have a generic promise for your business as a whole. So I gave you the example for Tandem Nomads with the identify pain points. Now I'm going to read you the second part of this template, which is the results and how to get to them. So once you access Tandem Nomads free resources, coaching services, and online trainings to guide you step by step through the process of starting or growing a successful portable business, this is the process, you will be able to build your own source of fulfillment and contribute to your family's comfort with your own income. All right, so you see here what happened. Again, I would love it if you could share with me if you identified with that, because it will really help me improve if not. So let me know, please. I would love to hear back from you on that. But you see here what I've done. I really described how I'm helping people to build a successful portable business through free resources, coaching services, online training, and what kind of results they will have. Source of fulfillment and contribute with their own income. Again, if you download that freebie with this template, I highlighted those words that actually are not mine. Those are the words that my own clients and listeners have been using to be able to express what they really want as a result. So that's it. That's the main thing you want to do to be able to describe your business, your product, your service, or answer the question, what do you do, in an effective way. It is very simple. And if you go through the templates and exercises I share with you on tandemnomads.com/111, you will be able to even go further into this. But this is the whole spirit of it. Now, I just want to make another side note about this promise, especially, for example, in networking. You want to adapt it to the person who's listening to you, especially if you're in front of a person and telling them. So let's say you're in a networking event and the person you're talking to is not an expert spouse. So you want to adapt that with the wording that you think this person would relate to. And the best way to do it is to first start with a question. In any case, Nomad Nation, if you want to be successful at networking, you want to spend more time listening than talking. So that you already know, I'm pretty sure. But one of the things you could do is get fed with the information you need before you explain what you do. So you want to ask as many questions to the person as you can to know what kind of things this person is going to identify with regarding what you have to sell or what you do. For example, you can, in this case, let's say we're in a networking event and I'm not too sure if you're an expert partner or not. I could say, have you ever given up your job to go abroad for your spouse? Or I could ask, if I don't think it's an expert spouse, have you ever moved abroad for work or something else? So start the topic of expatriation before I start talking about the issue of spouses. For example, that's a good way to have a discussion and getting the person engaged in that discussion so that they really understand the challenges once you get there. So in the template that I share with you, I actually give you an option. I show you how I explain my promise to people who are not expert partners. for the sake of time, I'm not going to do it here, but very important that you have that flexibility to be able to adjust the wording to who you're talking to. And the only way to do that is by practicing. The more you practice, the better it's going to get. And I can tell you from working with so many of my clients who I make them do this exercise of the promise, the first time it can get very frustrating because it's really hard to nail it down to just a few words. So don't give up. Just keep doing it until you really feel comfortable with the final result you get. And then keep practicing. The more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to get, and the more you're going to be able to fine-tune all those words. So it's not a one-time thing. It's a process of learning how to do this, and the more you will try it and test it with real people, the better you'll get at it. So I really hope that you'll be able to take full advantage of this episode and this guidebook that I have for you. And I have another bonus for you there is that you will also have a real template of how I do my sales pages. And this is very relevant for you who have a portable business and sell products online. If you're on a campaign, a promotional campaign, you're likely to have a sales page. A sales page is basically a page where you describe an offer and you invite people to click to make a payment and to buy that offer. So how do you do that based on this template and this preliminary work that you did on those keywords, etc.? So in that template, I show you with an image and a direct link to that sales page of how to do it, and you can model it if you want for your case. So don't ever copy people word for word, because that's never ever going to work for you. But I'm always happy to share, what I have in order to be able to model it for yourself and adapt it to your words. And this is why I'm not worried to share my things. It's because I know it's not going to work if you copy word for word. The only way for that to work is that if you use the right words of your audience, your business, and really that fit to what you have to sell and promote. Again, everything is about understanding your audience and giving them information that will make them feel that you really know them and they can really trust you because you know exactly what challenges they have and what they're looking for. All right, Nomad Nation, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I tried to be as quick as possible to give you as much value as possible, but definitely there's much more to share with you. So again, go to tandemnomads.com/111. And I really look forward to meet you in the next episode where we're going to talk about some difficult topics that actually are still pretty taboo in the expat world. And it's going to be called... are you making conscious choices in your expat life? And we'll have Katia Vlachos come and share her insights. We'll talk about the choices you're making when you decide to move abroad, when you decide to give up your career, and when you decide maybe to stay in a relationship where you're not happy. I can't wait to meet you there in the next episode. So before I say goodbye, I would love to thank you for listening. It means the world to me that you take the time to listen to this episode, and I really hope that it's been insightful and useful for you. That's all I want, is to get you started or going or take you to the next step. Depends on which stage you are now, but all I want is to support you. So I'm really excited to have you tune in. And if you enjoyed it, it would mean the world to me if you could leave your review on iTunes or any other podcasting app you might be using to listen to podcasts, like Stitcher, for example. Please leave your review there, and it will also help other people find this podcast much easier. And talking about that, if you could make sure that you are clicking on the button subscribe so that you can automatically receive all new episodes on your phone and not miss any other new tips coming up. And next week's episode is going to be great. So I can't wait to meet you there. And stay tuned to turn your challenges into great opportunities.